That's a lot of force and coercing and pushing going on. But
You can't go to the school unless you're vaccinated against mumps.
I think that's bullshit.
That's a different country.
Yeah, but
okay, would you want a country?
No, America is supposed to be the one that offers the most freedom. That's what America is supposed to be.
Yeah, okay, so watch.
So for example, if you use that argument, somebody may say, well, freedom of choice. I want to choose what I want to do with the body. You're right.
What body?
If you want to get an abortion.
Neil deGrasse Tyson had an appearance on Patrick Bet-David's show for a chat about vaccines. Even though this was a year back, the discussion is gaining relevance again, mainly because RFK Jr. might play a role in Trump's administration as the head of Health and Human Services. We're going to take a look at these segments from the show, and I'll also give my thoughts on the issue. It's a fascinating subject. So let's jump in together.
From what we knew at the beginning of COVID to what we know today, what do we know about the vaccine today that we didn't know while we were all testing it in America, taking it? What have we learned now?
What do you mean testing it on America? There were tests before it was released.
9 months is not a long time to test.
No, but it was tested.
Yeah, but 9 months. The average is 30. The average is 5 to 10 years. I mean, 9 months is not enough.
Okay, so you have to
test.
No, you have to ask. Hold on. It was tested in trials. Okay. By the way, I'm not claiming to be the expert on all this. I read all the same things you have, but I'm a scientist, so I read it as a scientist. Okay. There were trials. That's what the point of phase 1, 2, 3 trials are all about. They are tested enough to get data on how to then advise the larger population. Yes, it was tested. For you to say it wasn't tested is a gap between your awareness and understanding how things work and what actually happened. It was tested. If you want it to be tested on millions of people instead of thousands, you can put in for that. You can say, I don't want this unless it's millions. That's okay.
Totally fine with me.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
That's fine. So based on that, do you say, let's keep testing it while the virus keeps spreading? Okay? Right. So this is the contest between the information you have available to you at that moment and what's going on outside the lab. People are dying. Hospitals are becoming overloaded. So, do you say we have good data on the 1,000? It's not yet at 1 million in case you wanted 1 million. Are you going to say, let's still do it let's wait another 6 months so we get another 1 million in here? Will you do that as a public health professional?
No, I would have said, allow the individual to still have a choice that's okay with 1,000 instead of a few million. Leave the person have the choice. Not force him to take it or else you're going to get out of the Marines, and you've been doing this for 14 years. Not force him to take it or else you have to quit your job as a nurse.
There's a public health
force versus
there's a
choice.
There's a public health contract that you have signed implicitly as a citizen of a country where in part we depend on each other for health, our wealth, our security, and the like. And that contract is, in the best scientific evidence available at the time, if you do not get vaccinated, you will put other people in this organization at risk, and that organization does not want to take that risk. So you do not have this job anymore if you decline it. So with any public health decision, there has to be a consequence to you not participating in that social contract. Is it your job? In some cases it was. But no, we're not going to have the army bust into your home and force a needle into your shoulder. That's not going to happen.
We pretty much did that.
Well, only put your job at risk, yes.
Yeah, 67% of Americans took the COVID. That's force. That's not a choice. That's a lot of force.
I bet Neil deGrasse Tyson gets pretty tired of explaining things to folks like Patrick Bet-David. Even though he chooses to go on these shows, I imagine it can get repetitive. As Tyson points out, living in a society means we have responsibilities. Even in a free country like the US, one of those is not putting others in harm's way unnecessarily. People like Patrick Bet-David often argue that individuals should decide for themselves about things like vaccinations, but society can't function properly with an attitude of complete hands-off freedom. Tyson mentions that while nobody was literally forced at gunpoint, people were made aware that not complying with vaccination rules could lead to losing their jobs. It's funny how people like Patrick Bet-David generally support businesses having the right to fire anyone for any reason, except when it comes to vaccinations meant to safeguard the community. Honestly, sometimes I think we should create a massive libertarian paradise somewhere far away, like Wyoming, where folks like Patrick Bet David can go. There, they'd have no rules or societal duties, and they could do whatever they want without worrying about others. That would solve a lot, wouldn't it?
And coercing and pushing going on. But
you can't go to the school unless you're vaccinated against mumps.
I think that's bullshit.
That's a different country.
Yeah, but
okay.
He's suggesting that parents should have the choice to send their kids to school without vaccinations, even if it puts other children at risk. He's picturing a society where some have more freedom than others. For example, someone could choose not to get vaccinated, potentially spreading illness to many, while others, including kids, wouldn't have the choice to stay safe from those diseases. This is similar to what we're seeing with RFK Jr.'s potential rise in power. Picture a world where parents can decide if their kids get vaccinated. If other kids fall ill, well, that's their issue. Diseases like polio could make a comeback, and catching one would be a roll of the dice. It's complete chaos.
You want a country?
No, America is supposed to be the one that offers the most freedom. That's what America's supposed to be.
Yeah, okay, so watch.
So for example, if you use that argument, somebody may say, well, freedom of choice, I want to choose what I want to do with the body. You're right.
What body?
If you want to get an abortion, it's your choice.
Your own body. Your own body.
If you want to get an abortion, get an abortion. If I want to get the vaccine, I get to choose. So you can't force. If I can't force you to get an abortion, you shouldn't be able to force me to get.
Because it's not about you. It's about people you interact with, and that's the social contract of public health.
We don't even know if the vaccine worked or not at the.
Another absurd statement from Patrick Bet David. If a woman undergoes an abortion and heads back to work, she's not putting anyone else's life at risk, nor is she forcing others to have abortions. The reasoning just doesn't hold up, yet it's a narrative often repeated by conservatives: my body, my choice. However, you can't lump abortion and vaccination together. Abortion only directly affects the woman making the decision, not those nearby. On the other hand, choosing not to get vaccinated can endanger others with serious health consequences or even death. It's an imprudent and nonsensical argument.
Yes, that's what the trials are, dude. That's why these trials. Are you missing data out there?
But let me ask you a question. Are we saying only one type of scientists are right?
No, we're saying that the system in place.
The 16,000 that signed that.
No. The system in place to test vaccines.
Yeah.
There's an entire system that's in place. That with review boards and all of it.
Yeah, and the average
that's in place. Now you can say what you can say is, I have a better idea than all these review boards and all these agencies and the CDC. I have a better idea. Here's what you should do, and that would have made everything better. Okay, you can put forth that idea, but what I'm saying is, in a case where you can contaminate someone else, it's not about you. It's about the collective.
You're assuming
health.
You're assuming because somebody can take the vaccine, won't get COVID, which, by the way, I don't need to play the clips for you to see it, where everybody said, hey, if you get it, you're not going to get, if you take the vaccine, you're not going to get a Rachel Maddow, Joe Biden. I can give you Fauci. I can give you, and you've seen these clips before. It's not like you've never seen it before.
Yeah, what happened
They were wrong.
Hold on. So, the strain evolved, okay, so that the vaccine that prevented you from catching COVID was tuned to the variant of COVID at the time the vaccine was designed, okay? Over time, there were variants that arose. The vaccine provided partial protection against the new variants, enough to keep you from dying statistically, and to basically keep you out of the hospital, allowing other people with more severe problems to get the hospital attention they required. And so then they would develop a subsequent, the booster and a subsequent mixture of the vaccine. This is what happens every year with a flu shot. They look at how the flu has evolved from one season to the next. And what's fortunate is Australia tends to get the variant of flu before we do, because they get their winter in our summer, and then so we study that, have a forward projection for it. So these annual flu shots are precisely out of the same idea of how this occurs.
How long have those been tested, though? For years. COVID vaccine hasn't been tested for it. It was something we just came out. But let me.
I don't know what point you're making, other than it was tested. You might
9 months is not enough.
You might prefer. No, it's not a matter of time. It's a matter of how many. Yes, time matters, but the number of people is paramount. That's the most important thing. Okay, you don't test it on 10 people. You test it on as many people as you can. And
Sure.
I think it was thousands, but
Is it fair
don't
to
quote
say
me.
that some of the side effects we may not know for 5, 10, 15, 20 years? You can't, like, they can't say, we know 100% the side effects 10 years from now. How are you going to know that?
Yeah. Okay. So no, of course we can't know.
So
that.
then all I'm saying is...
Watch. We can't know that.
Okay.
But watch. So I have a whole chapter called Risk and Reward in the book, which tries to sensitize people to when they make a decision, what kind of risk are they absorbing relative to what they're rejecting? Okay? And we're not very good at that, at probability and statistics or analyzing it. That's why TV commercials trying to sell you a product don't just show you data. They show a person speaking of the effectiveness of the product. A single person. I lost 50 pounds. The testimony of an individual should be irrelevant to you relative to the entire set of people who have done it. And you want to look at those statistics, but we're not good at that. And advertisers know that. So they show the testimony of an individual, which is hugely potent in a civilization where we don't think statistically, we think about eyewitness testimony on something. And somehow that is raised to a very high level of influence on our decisions. What I'm saying is, you're not your decision point is not, I'm not going to take the virus because 5 years, 10 years, I don't know what effect it's going to have.
Some may, though. Some may not be comfortable with
Let me
that.
finish the sentence. Okay? So you can say, I don't want to take the virus because 5 or 10 years from now, there could be a side effect that we don't see.
Which is a possibility.
Hold on. I'm trying to make a statistical point here, okay? If you say, I don't want to take the virus because it hasn't been tested for 5 years and there could be some long-term side effect that worries me, okay? In that same moment, there's the risk factor of you getting COVID,
Sure.
okay? Unvaccinated. At one point, 87% of everyone dying in the hospital of COVID was unvaccinated. Okay, so your risk choice is, I'm not going to take it because maybe somewhere down the line something will happen and we don't know what that is, or I will risk getting COVID, and if I get COVID, depending on your age and other things, there's a 3% chance of me dying in the hospital. That's your choice. Yes. Yes, but what I see people doing is they focus on one thing, and that's the foundation of their decision, rather than the other chance. And what happens if you get COVID? Now you get long COVID. Now you can have a taste buds for 2 years or whatever it is for long COVID.
Yeah.
You're on a ventilator in the hospital, possibly dying. Like what? Where is the? So I looked every day once a week. I looked at the statistics. How many people are getting COVID? What's the rate? What's the rate of hospitalization? What's the rate of deaths? Where is it by state?
I had to look at it. My board forced me to look. We're in the business that we have to
They
look at.
should,
Yeah, of course.
because it's data.
Yeah, I agree.
On risk factors.
The risk of people's lives,
Okay,
for sure.
So nothing is ever zero risk. Yeah, there's a risk that you'll grow a third arm in 10 years because the virus mutates within you.
Should the individual not have the right to say, I don't want to take it because that's...
You don't have the right to contaminate someone else.
Sure, folks can say, I don't want to do this, especially if their boss requires them to get vaccinated to keep everyone safe. They can decline the vaccine, but doing so might mean losing their job or deciding to quit and look for work somewhere else. It's pretty clear-cut. In the same way, if parents don't want their child vaccinated for school, whether it's public or private, they can choose to homeschool to avoid putting other kids at risk. These choices are quite straightforward. Just like we have speed limits in the US, Patrick Bet David can't decide to drive at 120 miles per hour when the limit is 55 or 70 miles per hour. He might feel it's his right to go that fast, but he'd end up with a ticket or even get arrested for putting others in danger. If he wants to build a private road and drive fast by himself, that's fine. But on public roads, he can't just do whatever he wants, like driving on the wrong side and saying it's his right. Even in a country that's supposed to be free, you can't put others at risk. For Neil deGrasse Tyson, discussing this with someone like Patrick Bet David might feel like talking to a brick wall, as Patrick keeps mentioning that vaccines usually take 5 to 10 years to create, even in the case of COVID. Are we really going to stand by and let people die while we wait? Neil deGrasse Tyson highlights that hospitals were swamped with COVID patients, so much so that heart attack patients couldn't get treated because someone who declined the vaccine was using a ventilator. Is it wise to hold out 5 or 10 years for absolute perfection, which is never a sure thing? Patrick might point out that a vaccinated friend got COVID anyway, but nothing is foolproof. As Tyson mentions, there's always a slim chance of anything happening. Like you could walk outside and an airplane might fall on you. It's unlikely, but it's possible. I think it's vital to discuss this, especially since we're not just debating COVID vaccines, but also considering making polio and other childhood vaccinations optional for schools. A truly absurd idea to me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the conversation between Neil deGrasse Tyson and Patrick Bet-David on the Patrick Bet-David Show. Remember to like and subscribe. This is The Second Take, and I'll catch you in the next video.